Have you ever had a woman slowly drift away? Not in a dramatic explosion, not in a fight, not in some big breakup conversation, but quietly, subtly, almost like smoke slipping through your fingers. And the worst part is, you didn't even know what you did wrong. If you felt that before, that silent retreat, that cold distance, that shift in tone you can't explain, I want you to know something that most men never hear. You didn't lose her because you weren't attractive. You didn't lose her because you weren't successful enough or funny enough. You lost her because of patterns. Quiet patterns you didn't even realize you were showing. Today, you're going to learn all 7 of them. But before we dive in, I want you to keep one thing in mind. Women don't randomly pull away. They react, usually to a pattern you didn't see, but they noticed instantly. And once you understand these patterns, you'll stop sabotaging your own connections. You'll stop losing women you really liked. You'll stop replaying mistakes you couldn't see before. So let's start with the first one, and arguably the most common one among good men. Mistake 1, confessing too early, the neediness trap. Let me tell you a simple truth. Women don't trust sudden emotions. They trust patterns. When a man says, "I've never felt this way before," on day 2, or when he texts all day like he's been waiting his whole life for her, or when he tries to define the relationship before she's even processed her own feelings, she doesn't think, "Wow, he's so passionate." She thinks, "Why is he this attached this fast? He barely knows me." To her, it doesn't feel like romance. It feels like pressure. Think of it like this. Imagine someone walking into a room and saying, "I trust you completely. By the way, what's your name again?" It doesn't feel real. It feels rushed. It feels like desperation wearing a romantic mask. Let me give you a real story. There was a guy I coached a while ago. Good dude, kind heart, stable job, solid values. He met a woman he really liked. The chemistry was real, the dates flowed smoothly, everything felt natural. But after the second date, he told her, "You're different. I don't know why, but I feel something special with you. I haven't felt this in years." Sounds sweet, right? But here's how she heard it. If I make him feel this deeply, this fast, he must not have many options. Or maybe he gets attached to anyone who shows him attention. Or maybe he's projecting fantasy onto me instead of seeing who I really am. Within a week, she started replying slower. Within 2 weeks, she canceled plans. Within 3 weeks, she was gone. Not because he was a bad guy, but because he moved 10 steps faster than she was ready for. Women don't pull away from interest. They pull away from urgency. If you want to know whether you've fallen into this mistake, here are the signs. You text more than she does. You reveal your feelings way earlier than she reveals hers. You seek reassurance. Do you still like me? You want commitment before she feels safe. You think intensity equals connection. Ask yourself this. Are you building something real? Or are you trying to secure her because you're afraid of losing her? One creates attraction, the other kills it. And now we move into the next mistake, one that shows up right after neediness: control. Mistake 2, possessiveness and subtle control. Women don't walk away the moment they see controlling behavior. They walk away the moment they feel it. Possessiveness doesn't always look like yelling or demanding. Most of the time, it starts very quietly. Why didn't you text back sooner? Where are you right now? Who are you with? You didn't tell me about that plan. Why are you posting that? Why didn't you invite me? Men think these questions show care. Women feel these questions as pressure. Behind every controlling behavior, she senses something deeper. Fear. Fear of losing her. Fear of not being enough. Fear of being replaced. She doesn't judge the question. She reads the energy behind it. Let me give you the most common scenario. You meet a woman, things go well, you're excited. The first week? Amazing. You laugh, you talk, the connection feels natural. But then suddenly, you start paying too much attention. You notice when she's online. You notice when she posts. You notice when she replies slower. You notice who she hangs out with. You stop being present and start monitoring. You're not trying to control her. You're trying to control your anxiety. But to her, it feels like a cage. And here's the psychological part women won't tell you. When a woman feels like she's losing personal freedom, she retreats, even if she likes you. Here are the signs you may be slipping into this pattern. You watch her online status. You feel uneasy if she doesn't reply. You ask too many details about her schedule. You want her plans to revolve around you. You get anxious when she's out with friends. You want constant updates. This is how women think. If he's like this now, what happens in a relationship? What happens in a marriage? What happens long term? You may think your questions show interest, but she interprets them as an early warning sign. Pressure makes women pull away. Freedom makes women come closer. And speaking of pressure, there's a different kind that pushes women away even faster, and most men don't see it coming. It's when you bring your past into the present. Mistake 3, talking too much about your ex. This one is simple. When you talk about your ex too much, even casually, she reads meaning, not words. If you talk about your ex fondly, she thinks you're not over her. If you talk about your ex negatively, she wonders how you talk about her one day. If you compare the two, she feels like she's in a competition she never agreed to. Let me paint the picture. Imagine you're on a date. Everything is smooth. Conversation flows naturally. You're laughing, she's smiling. The energy feels light. Then suddenly, you say something like, "My ex never appreciated how much I did." Or, "My ex used to complain a lot." Or, "We argued because she didn't understand me." The moment you say that, she stops listening to your story. She starts evaluating you. She thinks, is he still emotionally attached? Is he blaming her for everything? Is he still hurt? Did he even process this breakup? Will he bring emotional baggage into this? Women are extremely sensitive to emotional residue. They don't want to inherit your past wounds. So here are the signs that you're making this mistake. You mention your ex during casual conversation. You compare your current connection to your past one. You talk about how badly you were treated. You share unresolved emotions. You justify your behavior using old relationships. You seek validation by explaining how crazy your ex was. Women don't mind that you have a past. Everyone does. What scares them is when your past is still active inside you. If you haven't healed it, you'll repeat it, and women sense that immediately. Before we continue, I want to hear from you. Which of the first 3 mistakes have you made before? Be honest. Type it in the comments. You'd be surprised how many men are quietly dealing with the same patterns. And if this content is already opening your eyes, take 2 seconds to like this video. It tells YouTube to show it to more men who need it. Because the next 4 mistakes, those are the ones that most men never realize until it's too late. Let's continue. You've learned the first 3 patterns, the ones that quietly create pressure, insecurity, and emotional residue. But these next 4 mistakes, these are the ones that silently drain attraction, not instantly, but gradually, like a slow leak in a tire. You only feel it when the ride becomes bumpy. Let's dive in. Mistake 4, emotional stinginess, being present but not available. A lot of men think women pull away because they want too much. Too much attention, too much affection, too much emotional connection. But the truth is more surprising. Women don't want more. They just want matching energy. Here's the psychological piece most men misunderstand. Women judge emotional generosity not by how dramatic you are, but by how available you are. You don't need to overshare. You don't need to pour your heart out on date 2. You don't need to reveal your childhood traumas to prove depth. But you also can't be a brick wall. Let me tell you a story I've seen at least 100 times. A good man meets a great woman. She's warm, curious, genuine, and he likes her a lot. But when she asks simple questions like, "How was your week? Is something on your mind? What do you enjoy doing on weekends? What are you looking for?" he answers in the shortest way possible. "It was fine. Nothing. I don't really know. We'll see." He thinks he's being mysterious, calm, stoic, low drama. But she reads it as, he's not engaged. He's holding back. He's emotionally unavailable. He's not building anything with me. Women don't leave because you have walls. They leave because you expect them to climb those walls alone. Here are the signs you may be emotionally stingy. You rarely initiate plans. You don't ask personal questions. You avoid talking about feelings. You keep everything surface level. You never show vulnerability. You treat connection like a risk instead of an opportunity. Remember this metaphor. Emotional stinginess is like turning off the lights in a room. No one wants to stay somewhere they can't see clearly. The goal is not to overshare. The goal is to create a space where connection can actually happen. And speaking of space, here comes the next mistake, the one that destroys trust faster than anything else. Mistake 5, rushing physical intimacy, ignoring her internal alarm system. Men and women don't experience physical closeness in the same sequence. For men, attraction, connection, trust. For women, trust, safety, connection, attraction. When a man tries to escalate physically before her trust has time to grow, her nervous system feels it instantly. Not in a dramatic way, not in a confrontational way, but in a biological way. Her internal alarm system goes off. Let me paint the scene. You're on a great date. The conversation is flowing. She's laughing, leaning in, looking at you. You think, wow, this is going perfectly. But then you escalate too fast. Your hand lingers a little too long. You initiate closeness before she leans into it. You kiss her before she gives the signal. You try to take the energy somewhere she's not ready to go. And what happens? The vibe shifts. The warmth cools. The connection slows down. She doesn't get angry. She gets cautious. You didn't lose her attraction. You broke her pacing. Here are the signs you may be pushing too fast. You touch more than she does. You initiate every physical moment. You assume physical chemistry equals emotional readiness. You escalate even when she hasn't reciprocated. You interpret friendliness as desire. You ignore small cues telling you to slow down. Listen closely. If you rush physical connection, she doesn't think you're confident. She thinks you're impatient. Women feel desired when you make a move at the right moment, not the earliest moment. And that brings us to mistake number 6, the silent relationship killer. Mistake 6, inconsistency, the behavior that feels like chaos. Women don't need perfection. They don't need constant attention. They don't need a man who's always available. But they do need consistency. Why? Because inconsistency feels like emotional instability. Let me give you the classic scenario. A man starts strong. He texts consistently. He calls, he makes plans, he shows genuine interest. Then suddenly, he disappears. Not for dramatic reasons. Not because something terrible happened, just because he got comfortable, distracted, or unsure. He'll vanish for a day, then reappear like nothing happened, then disappear again. Then come back with intensity. To him, this is just normal life. To her, this is emotional whiplash. Let me put this into a metaphor. Imagine you're walking across a bridge. If the first few steps feel stable, but the next step randomly cracks, you stop trusting the bridge. It doesn't matter that most steps are solid. One unstable step is enough to make you hesitate. Women feel the same way with inconsistency. Here are the signs you may be falling into this pattern. You communicate based on your mood. You only give energy when attraction is high. You love bomb, then go quiet. You make promises casually. You forget commitments. You switch between hot and cold without noticing. Women don't judge the individual moments. They judge the pattern. Consistency doesn't mean being perfect. It means being predictable in a healthy way, reliable, steady, grounded. And finally, the seventh mistake, the one men almost never realize they're making. Mistake 7, weak presence or overwhelming presence. Women don't fall for the loudest man in the room, and they don't fall for the quietest either. They fall for the man who knows how to own his space without dominating it. Presence is not volume. Presence is not ego. Presence is not silence. Presence is energy. The energy you carry when you walk into a room, sit across from someone, or simply exist in their space. Let me show you the two extremes. Extreme 1, weak presence. This is the man who speaks too quietly, avoids eye contact, hides his opinions, shrinks physically, lets her lead everything, acts like he's waiting for her approval. She doesn't feel unsafe with him. She just can't feel his center. It's like trying to lean against a wall that keeps shifting. Extreme 2, overwhelming presence. This is the guy who talks nonstop, interrupts, over-explains, brags, tries too hard to impress, takes up space to hide insecurity. Women can feel these two energies instantly. One feels like emptiness. The other feels like pressure. Healthy presence is the middle, calm, grounded, attentive, balanced. Here are the signs your presence might be off. You overtalk out of nervousness. You go quiet and disappear into yourself. You avoid physical stillness. You don't hold eye contact comfortably. You try to perform instead of connect. You don't know when to speak and when to listen. Presence is not about what you say. It's what your energy communicates. And now we reach the turning point of this entire video, the revelation that ties all 7 mistakes together. Before we hit the climax, I want to hear from you. Which of these mistakes, 4, 5, 6, or 7, feels the most familiar? Drop it in the comments. There's power in acknowledging a pattern. That's how change begins. And if this video is resonating with you so far, hit that like button. It tells the algorithm this is the kind of content men need more of. Because the next section, that's where everything clicks. Where the confusion becomes clarity. Where you finally understand why women pull away and how to stop it forever. You've seen the 7 mistakes. You've recognized the patterns. But now we reach the moment that changes everything. Because here's the truth almost no one tells men. Women don't pull away because they're complicated. They pull away because they're protecting themselves. And that leads us to the revelation, the twist most men never see coming. The revelation: she doesn't leave you, she leaves the patterns. Let me repeat this slowly because it's the turning point of the entire video. You don't lose the woman. You lose the version of yourself she was drawn to. Attraction isn't only about chemistry. It's about consistency, emotional stability, pacing, and presence. Women don't retreat from who you are. They retreat from the patterns you didn't know you were showing. Think back to the 7 mistakes. Neediness, control, bringing the past, emotional stinginess, rushing physical closeness, inconsistency, weak or chaotic presence. These aren't flaws. These are signals. Signals that tell her, this man might drain me. This man might depend on me too much. This man might not be ready. This man might overload me emotionally. This man might destabilize my peace. And women will always protect their peace, even when they like you. Let me give you a moment you've probably lived before. She didn't ghost you. She didn't block you. She didn't explode with anger or conflict. She simply shifted. Her tone softened. Her replies slowed. Her enthusiasm faded. Her energy pulled inward. Most men panic at this moment. They think, what did I do wrong? How do I fix it? What do I say? How do I get her back? But the truth is, she didn't withdraw because you failed. She withdrew because your patterns didn't match her emotional safety anymore. And here's the twist. You can change those patterns, but not for her, not for approval, not for validation. You change them because they determine the quality of connection you attract for the rest of your life. This brings us into the final section, the part where everything becomes practical, grounded, and actionable. Because awareness without action is useless. Let's talk about how you break these patterns for good. Before we close, let's summarize the 7 behaviors that quietly push women away. 1. Neediness, confessing too early. You confuse intensity with intimacy. She feels pressure instead of connection. 2. Control, possessiveness. She feels trapped, monitored, or emotionally smothered. Freedom is oxygen to feminine energy. 3. Bringing the past, talking about your ex. You either look unresolved or resentful. Either way, she sees a man who isn't available now. 4. Emotional stinginess. You're present, but not participating. She feels alone even when you're with her. 5. Rushing physical closeness. You break her pacing, triggering instinctive caution. 6. Inconsistency. Your hot and cold behavior translates to instability. 7. Weak or overwhelming presence. Your energy is either too little to feel or too much to handle. When you look at these 7 patterns together, a powerful insight appears. Women aren't walking away from men. They're walking away from emotional instability. And that brings us to the insight that ties the whole message together. The core insight. Attraction isn't chased, it's maintained. Here's what most men never learn. Attraction isn't something you create with perfect lines or perfect timing. Attraction is something you maintain through consistency, pacing, confidence, boundaries, self-control, emotional availability, healthy presence. Women don't respond to excuses. They respond to energy. They feel your insecurity before you say a word. They feel your confidence before you make a move. They feel your inconsistency before you realize you're doing it. Your energy speaks first. Your words only explain it. And once you understand this, dating stops feeling chaotic. It stops feeling random. You stop blaming women. You stop blaming yourself. You stop blaming circumstances. You start seeing the patterns clearly. Because attraction isn't luck, it's rhythm. And rhythm comes from alignment. Actionable advice: how you break these patterns for good. Let's make this practical. Here's the blueprint every man needs. 1. Move slowly but intentionally. There's a difference between being slow and being passive. Move with intention, not urgency. 2. Give her space without disappearing. Space is healthy. Distance is destructive. Find the balance. 3. Build emotional availability. This doesn't mean oversharing. It means being open enough for connection to grow. 4. Match her pace, not faster, not slower, just aligned. 5. Let actions be the proof. Your consistency builds more attraction than any compliment. 6. Strengthen your center. Work on your presence, boundaries, self-respect, confidence, purpose. When your center is grounded, women relax around you. They trust you. They feel safe with you. And when a woman feels safe, emotionally, mentally, and energetically, she naturally moves closer. Not because you chased her, but because you held your center. The final message, a wake-up call for men. Here's the truth I want you to walk away with. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be rich. You don't need to be charming. You don't need to be smooth. You just need to be consistent, emotionally stable, grounded, and present. Women aren't evaluating you based on your highlight reel. They're reading your emotional patterns, the ones you show without realizing it. And when you shift those patterns, the entire course of your relationships changes, not temporarily, not accidentally, but permanently. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these 7 mistakes have you made, and which one will you never repeat again? Drop it in the comments. You'll be surprised how many men share your story. If this video opened your eyes, hit like. It helps this message reach more men who need it. Share it with a friend who keeps asking, why do women keep pulling away? And if you want more clarity, more insight, and more emotional power in your relationships, hit subscribe so you never walk blindly again.